Hello, welcome. In this presentation, we'll be exploring the impact of our words and how distinguishing between observations and judgments can improve communication and relationships. So, why is it important to distinguish between observations and judgments, evaluations, or assumptions? And why is it important to realize when we're making judgments with our language? Our language shapes our reality and relationships. Judgments and assumptions create disconnection. Observations can foster clarity and understanding. What are observations? Observations are objective and verifiable. They're like what a camera would capture. Let's practice identifying some observations versus some judgments. So you can see an example here. She raised the volume of her voice. That's an observation. She yelled at me rudely. That's a judgment. Do you see the difference? Notice what is difference between the two statements. So what about judgments, evaluations, or assumptions? Judgments, evaluations, and assumptions are interpretations. They often include assumptions about motivation or character. So it's a personal interpretation or an opinion of a situation. And here you can see one example. He is inconsiderate. That's a judgment. That has an assumption about the motivation of a person's action. He spoke while I was speaking. That's an observation. And I love this quote by Henry Winkler. Assumptions are the termites of relationships. I also like to say, we know what assumptions do. They make an ASS out of you and me. Why do we judge? We judge because our brain seeks efficiency, but judgments can lead to disconnection. So our brain wants to create these shortcuts. We rely on past experiences, and super important, we rely on our cultural conditioning. We are seeking to protect ourselves emotionally or physically, and the problem is that judgments can often be inaccurate and lead to conflict. And even when judgments aren't inaccurate, nobody likes to be labeled. Nobody wants to be told who they are or what their motivation is or what they are. Even if it's correct, we don't like to be told who we are. It feels like an invasion of our power and our dignity. And again, love this quote by Wayne Dyer: when you judge another, you do not define them, you define yourself. When we judge, we tend to trigger defensiveness. When we observe, we open the dialogue. So judgments trigger defensiveness and resistance. And if you can look at these examples and see how these examples feel in your body. A judgment, you never listened to me, versus the observation, in our last 3 conversations, you looked at your phone while I was speaking. Let's rewrite some judgmental statements into observations. So pause the video and read these statements here and try and rewrite, and these are judgments, try and rewrite these into observations. And you're going to have to imagine what might have happened to create this kind of judgment in somebody's mind. So just pause the video and do this, and then I'm going to give you some examples in the next slide. So here are some examples of possible rewrites. These are not the right rewrites because, of course, we are imagining. We don't know what actually happened by the judgments, which is Another problem with judgments is doesn't actually name what really happened. So my examples in order, just like the ones before. She changed the subject when I started sharing my experience with her. He's been late for the last 3 meetings. They didn't complete the steps as I asked them to. What difference does it make? Just notice how these statements feel different in your body. I'm going to prompt you to do that in the next slide, but to also reflect on how this might change the situation. All right, so pause the video again and really take these examples that I shared and say them to yourself or have somebody else say them to you, one versus the other, and notice how they feel different in your body. So the role of curiosity. Instead of assuming, let's ask questions. Questions promote understanding. How might you invite curiosity into a difficult conversation? So here are some examples of questions you could ask. Could you tell me more about what happened? How did you experience that situation? What were you hoping for in that moment? Connecting through observations. You can use observations to foster connection. I noticed you didn't respond to my message. Are you feeling overwhelmed? I heard you say you disagreed. So that's the observation. Can you tell me more about your perspective? You can use empathy as a tool for bridging understanding. In closing and to help you reflect, I'm hoping that you can take away that an awareness of your language increases connection and has this opportunity to reduce conflict. And I challenge you over the next week to practice noticing your judgments, and every day take at least one thought that you have and notice it as a judgment and rewrite it as an observation. And even now, right now, reflect on what challenges might arise for you and what benefits do you anticipate from this practice. Another great homework here I would love for you to share in our group chat is to take one of these quotes and just reflect on what it means to you and how you see it could be alive in your life, or how it might change something in your life, and then go ahead and share that in our group chat. That's it. Let me know if you have any questions. We can keep the discussion going about all of this. Bye.